Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm here with Debra Woog. Great. So Debra is a crisis navigation partner, and I'm actually going to have her introduce herself more because I think that it's always better coming from somebody from them so that they can say what they want. But I want you to listen to this episode because if you've ever gone through some type of crisis, which we all have, then it's how do you navigate that and how do you get through it? So Debra, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks. So yes, I am Debra Woog, and I'm a crisis navigation partner. And if you've never heard of one before, that's okay, because I made it up. So don't expect you to have heard of it before. I made it up and I registered the trademark. And maybe one day there will be an army of us out there. But for now, it's just me. And I work with women leaders who feel on their own for whatever reason. So they could be leaders of their families. They could be leaders of a giant company. They could be leaders of a, PTA or anything. But women who understand that they're a choice in the world, who are facing a personal, a professional, or an organizational challenge that's so big that it's interrupting their regular daily schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And they might feel on their own because they're single, or because it's lonely at the top of the organization, or because they're the only adult child taking care of parents, or they're the only involved adult child taking care of parents. And my role is to be a designated, confidential resource to help them lead their way through to get to the best possible outcome on the other side of the crisis that they're facing.
I love that. And I wish that I would have had you, I think it was probably 15 or 16 years ago.
What were you going through?
Going through a few different things. Pretty bad situation at work. And then I was going through divorce as well. So yeah, good times. Through it. But yeah, it would have been nice to have somebody like you to talk to. So how did you get into this business?
Well, I felt like you did because I'm divorced and I went through that. It was very lonely and isolating, and I'm such a pioneer. I was one of my first friends to get divorced. Yay! Yeah, okay. That was a tough experience, and that was 15 years ago.
Wow.
And so I was a single mom who was the main breadwinner and the main caregiver for 15 years now and counting. Now my kids are both in college, so my lifestyle is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I so wished that I had someone who would walk with me through it and help me plan for difficult discussions, and somebody I could outsource to and say, here, take this research project and go figure out how this is usually handled. And somebody who would help me prepare for and even go with me to difficult places like divorce court.
Yeah.
So this was really born out of my desire to have such a thing for myself. My family lives far away. I just didn't have a lot of local support. And some people have that, and that's wonderful, and they don't need a crisis navigation partner. But for people who are feeling on their own, it's really different. So I started my business 25 years ago this month. No, this year. Thanks, not this month. In March. Now it's May. I got it. I know what day and time it is. I know who's president. So I started in March 1999, and I was a leadership consultant and career coach and organizational change consultant. And that's what I did in my business for about 20 years. And then I got to a point with it where I just wasn't so excited about it anymore. And I really had to reflect and figure out why. And what I realized was a lot of people were coming to me for help making changes that were nice to have changes.
Yeah.
And I had been through my own stuff, divorce, my son being diagnosed with a chronic illness, my daughter being diagnosed with a mental health thing, severe anxiety. And I know what it's like to have to get through something. And I just realized that for me, I wanted to work with people who really needed the support, and it wasn't like a luxury thing in their lives. And just thought back about my whole career, and I realized I have been this person who who walks, maybe don't run, towards crisis as opposed to runs away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Since I was a teenager, and I started making lists of all the people that I had supported through different personal and professional and organizational crises. And I realized this is what I really want to focus on. And that was in the summer of 2019. And I came up with this term and I talked to people about it, the crisis navigation partner term. And people said, oh, no. Lots of people told me you can't use crisis in your job description. No, that doesn't resonate with anybody. Nobody thinks that they've been in a crisis. Nobody knows really what that means. And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like this is what I need to talk about. This is what I've been through. And so I made a whole list of the kinds of crises that I had been through myself or I had supported other people through. So like death of a loved one, diagnosis, physical health or mental health diagnosis, dispute, downsizing. I had a whole great list of things that happened to start with the letter D, and the MBA in me was so happy. Look, they all start with the letter D. And so then I started, I created a signature talk and I started going out and talking to people. And the talk is called Unmasking Women in Crisis, 3 Keys to Navigating Life's Inevitable Big Challenges. Didn't use the word crisis in the subtitle there. Anyway, so I was giving this talk and that was interesting and it was resonating with people and I had some business. And then I gave a talk in March of 2020 in Philadelphia. And when I came back that weekend, it was the first weekend, I came back and I went to the grocery store because that's what I did on Sundays back then. And there was no soap. And there was, it's like, what happened here? I mean, I was aware of COVID, but it just like hit in the 2 days that I was away that everyone realized, oh my gosh, this is really serious. We might be stuck in our houses. And then that happened and everyone was in crisis. And then some people were calling me left and right saying, I remember I went to this talk and I heard this thing. And suddenly I had plenty of business. So just kind of weird the way the world works, the universe works. I just was following my instinct. Like, I know this is better than the world. And I know what people are telling me and why this doesn't seem like it's a good idea. I had no idea what's coming. I never thought of pandemic. And the pandemic created all sorts of personal and professional and organizational crises for people. So that's what I've been focused on entirely for the past 5 years.
See, I think that is amazing that I like the keywords, which we'll talk about off air. But what I was going to say is that you followed your gut when everybody told you, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. And that's how many times do we, when we go to start a business or we go to do something and people like the naysayers, nope, I don't think that that's a good idea. Oh, you're negative. Oh, what is that? Nobody's going to know what it is. And because you followed your gut and your instincts that you said, no, I'm going to stay true to what I believe, and this is what I'm going to do. And so you went for it and it has worked out. So I love stories like that because so many times we listen to people we should never be listening to.
Yeah. Or we don't, or another way to say it is we don't trust ourselves enough to let our inner voices drown out.
Right.
The noise.
True to who you are. Nope.
People who maybe aren't our target market, or maybe don't have the vision we do, or just because someone's never seen someone do that thing doesn't mean somebody can't be doing that thing, you know?
Yep. So this is probably off topic that you're not even expecting, but you said you trademarked it. So how long did it take you to go through the trademarking process and get,
longer than I would have thought. I think I have to look, but maybe close to 3 years. Anybody can trademark anything, just put a little TM on it. But then I wanted to apply to register the trademark and I hired an attorney. And we had what my attorney said was a real stickler of a patent and trademark officer personality type. And he rejected it. We kept going back and appealing it. This is really funny. I really believe that we're all brilliant in our own unique way. And our brilliance is everything we've been through, the hard stuff, the difficult stuff, the mistakes, the successes, everything we're passionate about. And so I think this is funny because I realized like I used a part of my brilliance I never even knew was part of my brilliance. But anyway, he came back and he said, you cannot register a trademark for a job title. And I said to my attorney, that is not true. And let me tell you how I know this, because I watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And I remember when Kris Jenner registered the trademark for momager. And that's precedent. I said to my lawyer, I want you to go back and cite that case.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So
You
it
are
was
smart to be
3
a attorney.
rounds. And that was his 3rd complaint. Somehow we got over the 2nd complaint, the 1st complaint. And so, yeah.
I love that. Well, persistence, but education too. And because
Education with the Kardashians, that's me.
you hire an attorney, you hire an expert, and they come and tell you can't do that. Well, you go back and say, no, that's not true. And so this is what I want you to do. And so that's something else that, the golden nugget, that you don't always have to listen to the person that's telling you that is apparently the expert in that industry, because sometimes there's things that come up that they're not aware of. And so you came back and said, no, go fight it again. And you won. So
yeah, and to be fair, the attorney didn't say you can't do it.
right.
She said that the patent trademark examiner said I couldn't do it.
Gotcha.
And then she said, well, I don't know what else to say at this point. Well, I do. Kardashians to the rescue. Thank you, entrepreneurial women. So they sort of fit into the theme of this community, right?
Oh, that's great. That is great.
Some of my brilliance is watching reality TV.
You know what though? My husband, because I am obsessed with like the Datelines and the murder mystery.
Oh, I can't handle that. That is a kind of reality that stresses me out. I'd rather see 2 women fighting over who's going to have dinner in that seat versus that seat than watch true crime.
He says the same thing, but I'm like, you know what? I got to be aware of everything around me,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's everyone has their own outlet, and so that's
right. Totally.
But there's things that you learn on any TV show. I used to teach college, and I started at 22, right? I have no life experience at 22. So I used to like all the examples I would use would be from the TV shows. Like, well, I was watching the show, or I've heard the story, because I was kind of tired of always saying I was watching the show, but what you have sometimes.
Yeah. I think be open about it, because you never know when that's what's going to resonate with someone, to say, oh, my professor said blah, blah, blah. And I realized, oh, that's valid. Like she likes to watch these crime TV shows. And, now I'm a criminal justice major. I used to think that was silly, but now, I'm going to be a detective. You just don't know how you're influencing people when you tell your truth and you be your authentic self.
Yeah, no, that is very true. So what are 3 keys to navigating life's inevitable big challenges?
There's 3. 1 is community, 1 is capacity, and 1 is communication skills.
I love your E's and your C's, and
I know, right? It just worked out. So I like what's the word for that? Oh, what's the literary term for that? Alliteration. I like alliteration. So which one do you want to hear about? Because I know this is I could talk to you about this for 3 hours, and this is not a 3-hour podcast.
Middle one, which I was so obsessed with all the C's, but we're gonna go.
Okay. So what did I said them in? Because I said community, capacity, and communication skills.
Yep.
So I think of all these things as kind of like muscles that you can build to prepare for a crisis in advance, or to lean on to hold you up and be strong when you're in the crisis, even if you haven't prepared. And capacity is how much can you do and how much can you handle at once? And really, I think the 3 things are intertwined in some ways, but capacity is like, are you emotionally on the top of your game? Or how's your executive functioning skills? If you are a person with ADHD or executive function disorder and you're not great at executive functioning, who are you partnering with to expand your capacity? Maybe you're hiring a virtual assistant or an executive assistant, or what are the things you can do? Or maybe you have a partner in life who can handle more of those things for you. But those are 2 big things, I think, for capacity Do you have contingency plans in place in advance for what if there's a disaster? What if there's a crisis? Who can you turn to? And do you have enough time available? Because what happens with crisis, a couple hallmarks of crisis are, one, they're so consuming that you can't just follow your regularly scheduled programming like they used to say when we were kids on TV. There would have to be specials.
Right.
And two is there's a lot of decisions to be made in a short period of time.
Right.
So are you jamming up your entire life right now such that you barely get any sleep and you don't have time to exercise and every waking minute is filled now? Well, then what happens if you're in a crisis? Like, you're going to have zero excess capacity.
Right.
How do you build some more excess capacity into your work? And your life? Do you let go of some expectations of yourself or some of your responsibilities? Do you delegate to other people, like I was saying? Do you have a good breathing practice? I mean, obviously we all breathe, but I spend so much of my time like out of breath because I was trying to squeeze so much in all the time. Now I'm a huge fan of yin yoga, which I do ideally like 3 times a week or more. And I'm just breathing and stretching for an hour. And that has really opened up. So I think adding self-care to your life, adding emotional support, adding therapy, adding exercise. You might think, I don't have time for that because I'm in a crisis. And so now is not a good time for me to go get a massage. And yes, I get that. But if you just slow down for pockets during your day, it enables you to be much faster processing all the stressful times the rest of the day.
I agree, because we as moms, we'll talk about that first. We have a tendency to try to take everything on, right? We have to keep the house clean. We have to take care of the kids. We have to cook the dinner. We have to clean up the dinner. We have to, blah, 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 blah. And that's not even the business, right? And so it's juggling all this stuff. And then, oh, now we're going to be this entrepreneur and we're trying to start this business. And so you could easily, yes, we have a high capacity. I 100% agree with that. But I used to be the type that would take on and take on and take on and take on. And then it's like, well, wait a second, can I give my all to that or can I not? And it's been a hard struggle and a hard road to finally say, you know what? I'm just not going to do that. Like a perfect example was last week. There was this thing that I volunteered for. And and a couple of weeks before that, some moms reached out and said, hey, we want to help you. And I said, well, actually, I'm going to give it to you because I can't take on anymore. I'm sorry, I can't. And I was talking with a friend. I'm like, yeah, I was out. And he goes, that's not like you, Charisse. You usually you wouldn't do that. And I said, you're right. I used to not do that, but now I do. And so you have to understand your capacity. And sometimes we can take on a lot more. Other times we can't. But, I love those people that they have like one child and they stay at home or they have a part-time job or they don't have any kids and yet they're
so
busy. Yeah. And it's overwhelming for her sitting at home, hoping that her husband will make money. If it were me, I'd be like, I'm out there, I'm going to go make sure I'll take it on. And so it's hard you can't judge people because you don't know what's going on in their minds.
Yes. I agree. And you're my people because my people being my friends and my clients, they're all people that I call hyper competent, which is you're so good at getting things done that it's almost to your disadvantage.
Right.
Because you burn yourself out so easily. And the truth is you're probably better at doing a lot of those things than the other people are. And so there's a party that's like, I'll just do it because I can do it faster and I know more how to do this. But then if we keep packing ourselves and we feel like we pack our schedules and we're trying to do everything and we're not leaving ourselves any spaciousness,
right,
that leads to poor health outcomes and worse.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So we're kind of wrapping up. So my question to you is any realm, okay, it could be business, it could be personal, it could be momhood, I don't care. But what's one piece of advice that you would have for our listeners? It's something that you've learned along the way that has been life-changing for you.
What came to mind first for me is based on the story we were talking about earlier, but this has come up many times, which is leap, and the net will appear. We want to have every little detail. If we're hyper competent,
Yeah.
we want to have every little detail sorted out and every T crossed and every I dotted before we make a decision, before we make a move. And that's not always worthwhile. If you know that you're in your gut that this is what you're supposed to do, take the risk, take the leap, and trust yourself and trust the universe and go be brilliant and do what you're meant to do.
That is so important, because a good example, right? Say that you decided to go with somebody else's advice. So you didn't call it your crisis navigation partner. You called it something else, a life coach. Okay. You know how many life coaches there are out there, right? And so you didn't speak to your niche, you just spoke to whoever. And so now you created this whole course around it, and you did all these things, and yet you go to try to speak it and nobody bites. Well, now you've wasted so much time. Whereas if you leap, like I know many people who they sell their course before they have a course, because they see who, or they sell the product before they have a product.
But you find out if there's a market for it before you build it.
Yeah.
It's very smart. I agree. And I guess I just intuitively knew there was a market for what I wanted to do because I had been my target customer. And I knew other people who had been through it too.
Yeah.
So
and you listen to yourself.
that appeared. Yeah.
Well, I love that. Well, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
So the name of my business is Connect to Corporation with like the number 2. However, when I tried to get that URL 25 years ago, I couldn't. So my Connect TWO is my website, connect2.com. And that's where I am on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. You can email me at Debra@connecttwo.com. You can go to, if you want to have just a free conversation to see how I might be able to help you with what you're going through, you can go to my calendar page, which is connectwithdebra.com. And all my availability is listed right there.
Well, Debra, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time and I appreciate your wisdom. And Unbreakable Mompreneurs, there was a lot of golden nuggets that we talked about today. First of all, if you're struggling with a crisis, then reach out to somebody, especially Debra. She's here waiting for you. If you are wondering what to do with your business, or you're wondering how to trademark something, connect with Debra. She's got some advice. So thank you so much. And moms, go make it a great day.